Welcome to the bonus catch-up episode of games I finished last year. Believe it or not, there's a bunch of games I played to completion between releasing these two videos, and not talking about them at all would just feel wrong. And I also need some chill practice video to relax after the exam period and get back into form anyway, because this semester was... After finishing my list of games I wanted to play in 2022 with Bloodstained, I felt like playing a palate cleanser or two, something short, sweet and cute. And that something happened to be Timeline and Coffee Talk. Timeline is a cute puzzle game about manipulating time and sneaking around robots. You're basically editing the timeline of the current level, trying to put together the perfect combination of movement and inputs, using your cat companion or unique gimmicks of the individual levels in the process. And when I said editing, I meant it literally. Timeline is a tool used to rewind and change what already happened, which means the core of the gameplay is getting to the ideal solution step by step, fixing your mistakes and trying to find a route that doesn't get you killed. Almost like making a video really. The story is a bit forgettable and has a weak ending. Some of the levels are more stressful than I would like, and the visuals might be a bit too sterile and simple for some, but it's still an enjoyable short puzzle game, which really says something, because I don't like puzzle games. And then we have Coffee Talk, a visual novel that takes a bit of inspiration from Valhalla. Just a snitch. If you played that game, you already know what to expect. You're serving drinks to customers to talk to you about their lives and problems they face, every working day focusing on different story arc or an interaction between them. This is a more cozy, less dystopian version of that game, and honestly, it solved some of the issues it had. I don't want to spend too much time on doing a review inside of a review, but my main issue with that game was that the quality of the writing is a bit unbalanced. Some days simply focused on more enjoyable and interesting story arcs and characters than others, dragging the pace down quite a bit. Coffee Talk isn't perfect either. It occasionally has a bit of a heavy-handed approach for metaphors and symbolism, for example, but the dips in quality Valhalla has just aren't present here. The characters and their stories are all lovable, and their arcs are also wrapped up in a more satisfying way. Making coffee is a simple, surprisingly fun minigame, and in general I appreciated its beautiful pixel art vibe more. Lo-fi hip-hop and cocoa just taste better to me than methanol and synthwave. That specifically might be more of your thing obviously, and there's nothing easier than just playing both and finding out for yourself. Both are some of my favorite visual novels overall. I can't wait for the upcoming sequel, and I plan to cover it as well. Anyway, right after that, I played another chill, cozy, relaxing game ideal for the cold October nights. Doom Eternal manages to be a much better and a slightly worse game than its predecessor at the same time. On one hand, the combat is faster and even more hectic. It's bigger in scale in every way. There's more options for tearing demons into pieces and more types of demons for that. All of that wrapped up in a presentation that is yet again extremely polished in all of its aspects, from the sound design to the iconic soundtrack to the animations and general art direction. It now has a story. Doom Eternal also directly solves two major issues I had with the first game. Its opening doesn't drag as much, as it gives you everything you need to start having fun within its first few minutes, and it also gives you a bit more quiet time between the arenas to give you a chance to rest a bit, filled out with a surprisingly great platforming and exploration. Overall, this is one of the most oddly tactical games I ever played, even though it may really not look like it from the gameplay you're seeing. Every frame counts, every input is important, every use of the blood punch or flame belch or the chainsaw must be calculated so that you assure a steady flow of resources to fuel your rampage. You must be aware of every enemy in the arena and what you must do to take them down. And that specifically is also why I said that Doom Eternal manages to be both better and worse. For all its expanded mechanics and tools, Doom Eternal also relies way more on hard counters, some enemies having a specific way you need to use to kill them instead of being able to express yourself and find your method, which by itself doesn't make the combat bad really. It's still one of the most smooth, responsive and satisfying gameplays in an FPS game like ever, but combine the reliance on hard counters with the occasionally overwhelming amount of enemies, especially in the later stages, and you get a perfect formula for gameplay segments that just aren't really fun. But hey, maybe those changes suit you compared to the 2016 reboot, and I definitely recommend this game. Anyway, let's start blasting through the rest of the games I want to talk about, as there's still a bunch of them left and I don't want this video to be too long. I actually finished a couple more FPS games after playing Doom Eternal. Elderborn is an interesting take on the Souls-like genre with a decent melee combat and a level design that can get a bit too confusing for my taste. The fact that I completely forgot about playing Industria until I started writing the script is all you need to know about that game. Aliens, Colonial Marines is just as infamously bad as I heard it is, with some of the most busted boss fights, gameplay sections and just mechanics in general I ever seen. But it also made me feel oddly nostalgic, and that's a plus. And Turok is a surprisingly satisfying and fun and 64 shooter. I just wish some of the levels weren't so big. Since I'm already talking about FPS games, I also managed to finish F.E.A.R. and F.E.A.R 2 and F.E.A.R 3, which I really didn't initially plan for, but it's not like these games are super long. My quick review of the entire series, it made me feel kinda sad. It peaked with its first entry, and while the sequel and even the infamous third game aren't awful, it never lived up to its full potential. All three games have fun combat mixed in with an interesting horror, but only F.E.A.R really managed to make both of these aspects work together. Its combat is incredibly tight and elegant, it feels tactical and makes every input count, in a way that feels more clean and minimalistic compared to the already mentioned Doom Eternal, all while there's this feeling of dread accompanying you the entire time. The actual horror and jump scares didn't age amazingly, but this heavy, gloomy atmosphere created thanks to the moody art style and OST is incredible, and it's also something that the sequels didn't manage to replicate. Both are simpler, edgier and more straightforward, and while the core shooting mechanics still feel good, they don't feel nearly as tight, playing more like fast-paced modern warfare with bullet time instead of a first-person Max Payne. These games just don't have their own identity. They lost what made the first game special by the second entry, and F.E.A.R 3 especially just feels like a set of loosely connected co-op missions. This is also my personal pet peeve, but I have weird feelings about the main villain of the series, Sadako. I mean, Alma. I never really managed to see her as the antagonist, her past being too painful and even overly edgy for her actions to not be justified, at least some of them. But it's a different issue for a different video. And oh god, I'm slowing down again, aren't I? Fuck. I also finished a couple more puzzle games, like Hacknet, a hacker simulator for people that are too dumb for HTML. Like me. It's mainly fun because of the unique way you interact with it, doing its best to emulate an actual user interface, having to navigate it while using text commands to do the actual hacking. It gets a bit repetitive towards the end, as there's like 4 hacking methods and the entire gameplay loop is pretty much just chasing for files and passwords, but it's also not long enough for that to be a real problem. Then we have Carto, another cute puzzle game based around a really fun mechanic. You have a map that's capable of moving around the level itself, transforming it so you can either progress or create a situation that always you get something you need. I'm aware that's a really rough description, this is also one of those games that are best to experience yourself. And to add another puzzle game, I finished Gris. This is a game that might get its own video eventually, as it's one of the most visually beautiful and satisfying games I ever played, combined with surprisingly well-made platforming and puzzle elements, and talking about it like this in its super fast-paced format just doesn't feel right. Just note that it's one of the best games I finished last year. Milky Way Prince, The Vampire Star, and Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk both neatly fit into a unique genre called fucked up visual novels that are hard to even describe, let alone summarize my feelings on. Both of them are really abstract and weird with a broken plot open up for interpretation, wrapped up in a minimalistic, stylish visual side. Maybe don't play these if you don't appreciate games doing everything they can to make you as uncomfortable as possible, but if you're into that type of horror, you're in for a treat. Another game I finished is also another game from one of my favorite developers. River City Girls is a really fun, stylish, visually gorgeous beat'em up that also takes a while to get really going, as you simply don't have everything you need at the start to make most of its combat system, but once it does, it's mwah. Its story also has a bit of a weird conclusion and it used to be worse, but if you like over-the-top characters and catchy soundtracks, this might be the game for you. On the other side of the spectrum, I also finished 2 of the best action horror games out there, Dead Space 2 and Evil Within. I don't think I really have to explain and defend liking Dead Space 2 that much. It's an incredibly atmospheric and well-made title, perfectly balancing intense action and horror, which on its own is a really fun, unique mix of occult and body horror. Evil Within is a bit more controversial, and I can see why. People were looking forward to it as a potential revival of the survival horror genre, but that simply didn't happen. Its story is really confusing and messy, main character is bland, and some of its chapters aren't. But where I expected to be disappointed together with the general public, I found a surprisingly great horror action game. One with a great core combat, built for experimentation and making every bullet and item count. It feels like a mix between Resident Evil 4 and Revelations 2 really. My favorite aspect though is the variety of the individual chapters, each focused on a different setting and with that, different gameplay style and even a brand of horror, occasionally paying really obvious tributes to them. One chapter is about sneaking through a hotel, silently taking out dangerous enemies. Other is about fighting your way through a devastated city. Then you have Silent Hill. The one after that is Resident Evil 4. There's even... I think you get the idea at this point. It's not and never was a masterpiece people wanted it to be, but I can't wait to continue with this series and hopefully other games from this developer. Last game I finished I want to talk about is 20 Minutes Till Dawn. Finish in huge quotations, because this is a roguelike and you can't really finish those by design. You can unlock all of the achievements though, and that's exactly what I did. I don't think I ever really talked about my hugely conflicting feelings onto roguelike genre, and it's something that will eventually probably deserve its own video. All I can say right now is that 20 Minutes Till Dawn might be the best one I played in a long time, right besides Hades. It comes from the relatively new subgenre of bullet hell roguelikes, which are basically roguelikes on coke, focusing on being as fast, accessible and satisfying as possible. Games like Vampire Survivors, Potato, Spellbook Demon Slayers and dozens more. And while all of these have their own merit and are more addictive than I would like, 20 Minutes Till Dawn is easily the best in my eyes, simply because of how insanely polished its gameplay is. It focuses on unlocking distinct perks and powers that can synergize and unlock new strategies, not even mentioning the rich offering of fun characters and powers, all of this wrapped up in a super clean and polished visual style. I'll probably try a couple more from this genre and then I'll see about making that video, but if you've been thinking about giving it a shot, this is a really good starting point. That's it for my first video of this year. I hope you enjoyed it and my weathering mental state wasn't visible too much. I also hope you will like what I have coming up next as well, as this was really just a warm up video for this year, and there's already a few fun projects in works that I'm really looking forward to finally getting to. If school doesn't kill me first, that is. But I think I'll be fine. My name is Bate, thank you for watching, take care and I'll see you soon.
Where have you been searching all along, confessing while alone.